Hi, this is Chris with MyTabletLife.com, and this is the review of the Elocity A7 Internet Tablet. The Elocity A7 is an Android 2.2 7-inch tablet. It is a capacitive screen tablet. Right now you can get it at Amazon.com, BJ's.com, TigerDirect.com. Most cases it is selling right now for around $349 to $369. It was just on sale for $299 for a bit, but it seems to be back up on most of those websites right now. As I said, it's a 7-inch tablet. The dimensions of the tablet, it's 8.2 inches by 4.8 inches by a ½ inch. Unlock there. So you see the device here. The bezel is pretty big on this device, just to give you some comparisons. This is the Kobe Kairos, which you can see is smaller, even though they both are 7 inches. The Elocity is a little bit bigger of a device. And then in comparison to the Arcos 101, just to give you an idea as far as size goes. But like I said, the bezel is pretty big on the device for the size that it is. It is a 7-inch screen with a 800 by 400 resolution. It does have a Tegra 2 T250 1 gigahertz NVIDIA dual core processor in it with the GeForce GPU. This is one of the few NVIDIA 2 Tegra 2 processor Android tablets on the market. The other being the ViewSonic G tablet. These are two that you can get in the US at the moment. This has 512 megabyte of RAM, 4 gigabyte of storage. However, I think about 1.5 gigabytes is available for apps. But there's some problem with that, as mine doesn't change no matter what I load on the device. We'll get into that in a little bit. It's a capacitive touchscreen. However, it is not multi-touch. That's been some of the big kind of to-do about this device. Even with being a capacitive screen, it is not a multi-touch device. They call it a 1-point plus zoom in, zoom out device. So that's what that is. It is Wi-Fi, BG, and Bluetooth. Let's go over some of the basics as far as what's on the device. You will see you do have your capacitive buttons here. You have your search, back, home, menu, and then your volume. Your volume is actually a capacitive button as opposed to some sort of rocker on the side. One of the things with most of these tablet devices that I have not liked that have capacitive buttons is these do not light up. So in darker, when you're in darker areas, it's really hard to really see where these buttons are, and that's kind of annoying. On the bottom of the device, you have a dock connector. However, at the moment there is no dock being sold for the device. This is your DC in, your power. Mostly all your main stuff's on this side of the device here. You have your power, which this button is inside there. It's a little pain in the butt to use. Sometimes I have trouble not knowing if I hit it or not. And then here you have your USB and HDMI. These are full USB and full HDMI ports, not minis or micros or anything like that. So that's kind of nice. The device is supposed to come with each cable. Mine did not from TigerDirect, but they did send it to me separate for free. So I'm not sure if that was error on Elocity's part, because they were not included in the box, even though it says that they should be. I think these devices might have got out to some of the distributors too quickly and weren't loaded properly. This is one of the speakers there. They list them as 0.5 watt speakers. There is 2 on either side. They're not the loudest. The device sounds really good with headphones, but these speakers are not the loudest. They're good quality, but they just don't get very loud. Top of the device is your headphone jack, and then your SD card goes right here. Micro SD. There is a SIM slot, however, at this time this device does not support 3G. This is a Wi-Fi only tablet, so there is no data services. It's just Wi-Fi. You don't pay any monthly plans. You just use this device when you're able to connect to Wi-Fi networks. There's the back of the device there, Elocity. I think that's the microphone actually on the back there. On the front here you do have your webcam, and there also is an ambient light sensor on the device, and there is vibration. That was one of my issues with some of the tablets that have come out. They don't have vibration, which I really do like, being able to have vibration, especially for me. I like it with the keyboard. When I'm typing on the keyboard, I like to have the vibration feedback. So that's one of the nice things that this device does have. The docking port, like I said, exists, but at this time there is nothing to support it. Maybe Elocity will come out with that in the future. The 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera webcam doesn't take the greatest of pictures. It is more for webcamming using Fring or Tango, two of the apps. I did have an issue with Fring. The latest update did not work correctly for me. My image was upside down for most people, but if I used the one that I was able to download with the device or came on the device, that worked fine. Another thing, there's no Google apps installed on this device when you receive it. Over at XDA developers, they have found a way to get Google apps on it, but when you purchase this out of the box, there is no Google apps. They do give you two app markets, GitJar apps and App Poke. You can see those right there. They don't have the biggest selection of apps, but there is a way to get apps on the device. And then you can always sideload apps either by connecting this to your computer through USB or using the micro SD card. So there's two ways to get it. They do give elocitynow.com is their website. You can go there, and they do have some apps that you can download right on there. Actually, it says it right on the box here, as you'll see. Get some free apps. Go to elocitynow/freeapps.com, and you can get some of those apps. Let's take a little bit to show you the web browsing experience. This is an Android 2.2 web browser, so that's nice. What that also means is you do have Adobe Flash support. Adobe Flash does come preloaded on this device, which I'm sure some people be happy about. You do not have to go about looking for it. It already comes preloaded on the device, and I'm sure when they do updates, if there's updates in Flash, they will do the updates that way. So here's mytabletlife.com. Scrolling, like I said, is pretty good. But since it's not multi-touch, this is kind of a software or some sort of other sort of pinch to zoom. As you'll notice, it's not as smooth. Now this, on the first update, it was even less smooth, so they have improved it a little, but it is still very touchy as far as use. So most people probably will prefer the tap to zoom method as opposed to using pinch to zoom on this device. However, like I said, it does have Flash loaded on it, so you can view Flash video. Just so you know, Hulu typically does not work on any type of mobile device yet. They have been blocked. They recognize that you're using the Android mobile version of Adobe Flash and not, a PC Flash, so they do have that blocked. There are some ways around that people have found over at XDA developers, so you can check on that. And as you see here, there is a web page, and it brings up the Flash embedded media right in there from YouTube, and it will play it right off the bat. So it is playing the video directly through, and it's pretty good on this. Being a Tegra 2 dual core 1 GHz processor, you're able to use it pretty well. So I've been pretty happy for the most part with the Flash experience on the device. As far as gaming goes, now there had been an update that fixed the installation of Angry Birds because it would not install at all originally. It does install after the update. However, most other games have not worked on this device. Games by PolarBit, EA Games, and Gameloft have not worked correctly. And I've actually contacted Elocity on this, and they're actually supposed to get back to me today about this. So hopefully I have some sort of update to put in the notes as far as what they plan on gaming, because they only fixed Angry Birds. But popular games such as Raging Thunder, Need for Speed, Asphalt 5, a lot of these games are not working. Some of it's because the accelerometer, this does have a 3-axis accelerometer in it, but what happened is it's similar to what happened with the ViewSonic G tablet and even the Arcos in the beginning. It's not working correctly. So that seems to be something they can fix pretty quickly, as they did with other devices, but currently almost most games do not work. Did contact Elocity, like I said, and they're hopefully going to get back to me today on that. Overall, like I said, this is a pretty powerful device. It's a Tegra 2 dual-core processor. The quadrant score right now for the quadrant benchmarking is around 23 to 2400, which is, you know, better than most devices out there. People do say the Tegra should get 3000, but right now it's, you know, it's getting 2400, which is double the Nexus 2.2 listing on the quadrant scoring. So that's that. But you also see one of my big issues with this device. Now, the touchscreen is really good. You can see it's smooth first fine. And I do have live wallpapers, so you can see there they are moving in the background ever so slightly. So all that works pretty good. Battery life, however, is not the greatest. I'm only getting about 4 to 5 hours battery life. So in comparison to other devices like the Arcos, the ViewSonic G tablet, the Galaxy Tab, they get 8 to 10 hours. You know, 4 to 5 hours, 5 hours is not the greatest. Hopefully maybe there's some things that they can fix and some updates to get, you know, 6 to 8 hours out of the device. Viewing angles, that's always a popular question about these devices, is viewing angles. Pretty good on this device. I would say better than the Arcos or the ViewSonic G tablet. However, not as good as like the Galaxy Tab or the iPad. It doesn't have, you know, as good a screen as either of those devices. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the viewing angles on the device. Like I said, they did release an update on 12/24. The first update fixed some issues, Wi-Fi disconnect issues, Angry Birds install issue. Aldeco was having some graphic issues, wallpaper reset issues. The file manager that they include, the OI file manager, they fixed some issues with that. Auto rotation, because it does have an accelerometer in the device like we talked about. They fixed some issues with that. And it says airplane mode issues. So they are working on this device. That first update came within a week or, 2 or 3 weeks after the device was finally shipping. So that's good that we know that they're going to be supporting it with updates. However, like I said, there's some big issues that still need to be talked about. SD card issue is one of the things, they kind of changed things around with the SD card because people were having problems with it. And now it doesn't list storage for USB or SD, or your SD card in there. So that's not that's not good. People want to see what the storage availability is on there. Like I said, there is the USB port, so you can plug in USB storage on this device also. You can also plug in a keyboard or a mouse or anything like that. They do work. It is a USB 2.0 host, so you can do either of those. For the updates on the device, you would go to elocitynow.com. And as I said, this does not have any Google apps out of box, so you will not have Gmail, you will not have the Android market. It does come with some other markets, GetJar apps and AppHoke. They also say that they're working on to bring SlideMe to the device and have actual support for that. The issues with some of the games right now, so even if you access the market, there's some issues. But if you do want to add Google apps, like I said, you can go over to XDA Developers and find out information on how to do that. Overall, I like the build of the device. Some people think it's a little plasticky. I think it's a solid feeling device, bigger than you'd expect for 7 inches. It does weigh a pound, where some of the other 7-inch devices weigh under a pound. But I think the build quality is pretty solid. It feels like a solid device. I'm happy with it for the most part. So this has been our review of the Elocity A7 Internet Tablet running the dual-core Tegra 2 1 GHz processor with 512 megabytes of RAM. As I said, you can go to Elocity now to check out the device and check out updates. You can purchase it at BJ's.com, Tiger Direct, or Amazon.com for around $349 to $369, although it has been listed on sale for less at $299 at one point. Overall, a good device. It still needs some work, so hopefully they do those updates. With the host of devices, coming out over the next few months, with CES 2011 next month, just in over a week, and lots of devices to hit the market in March and April. This could fall behind quickly, but it does have good specs, so it should be upgradable. So if Elocity keeps a hold on it, they do have a pretty good device. Now, some people will be unhappy with the no proper multi-touch, but overall, this is a pretty good device for the price, as long as they do stick to the upgrades and get some of these games fixed. If they do, you know, if they keep it as the way it is, it's just not worth it to not be able to play most of the Android games out there. You know, there's over 200,000 apps available for Android, and even their webpage says that most should work on this device. And at this time, I would say most games are not working on this device. So this has been our review of the Elocity A7 Internet Tablet from mytabletlife.com. Go to mytabletlife.com for your latest in tablet news and reviews.